Hi, folks. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody, whenever you are watching this. Welcome to Cloudian's live presentation of how we work with Splunk and Cloudian HyperStore together. My name is Amit, Cloudian Director of Solution and Alliances, and I'm here to give you guys a quick primer on Splunk and Cloudian HyperStore. Before we begin, I am going to put up a quick set of slides that I can walk through as we talk about this. All right, so the theme of today's talk is going to be do more with Splunk and how Splunk SmartStore and Cloudian HyperStore work together. So let's quickly go over the topic. To begin with, Splunk. Now, we all know that Splunk is the leading data indexing, search, and security tool in the market today. It collects and indexes machine data from a single source to tens of thousands of sources, all in real time. Data volumes range from gigabytes to hundreds of terabytes per day. Now, once data is in Splunk Enterprise, you can search it, analyze it, report on it, share insights on your data, and so on and so forth. You can detect and investigate malware, stop data exfiltration, monitor privileged users, detect zero-day attacks, as well as other kind of malware detection. Insights gained from these machine data can support a variety of other use cases, and it has become a very, very critical tool in the enterprise toolbox today. Now, as we go through this, let's talk about traditional Splunk architecture and what are some of the challenges with it. Now, the traditional Splunk architecture relies on indexes, which really are beefy servers that have compute power to crunch through the data streams coming in as well as they require data storage. Now, these indexes and the storage on these indexes are for the data that is recently ingested, typically 1 to 7 days worth of data. And typically this is termed as hot buckets. Anything beyond that also needs to be on the indexes for about 30, 60, 90 days worth of data, and that's the warm buckets. Beyond that, things can be offloaded onto external storage like NAS, SAN, and JBODs into cold buckets. Storage on these indexes itself, the hot buckets and the warm bucket storage, is typically performance storage tier like NVMe, flash, high performance disk, and it is very expensive. The challenges with these approach, well, indexer processing and the storage are tied to the hip. The scalability of the storage is equivalent to the scalability of the indexer itself. Now, as you scale storage, it means that the processing capacity also needs to scale, irrespective of whether you need it or not. It also means that if an indexer fails, your storage data within that indexer has also failed and will need a rebuild. This can take a long time, impact processing as well as storage cycles. Now, the retention of the data is also increasing exponentially. And if you're storing this cold buckets on a NAS SAN tier, that can become very expensive. Not to mention that there's inherent limitations between the scalability of the NAS and SAN tiers, and therefore you have a limitation on how much you can also retain. The cost is definitely very high. Overall, what this means is Splunk is a Cadillac product. The license is already costly, and the Splunk infrastructure that is required for having a traditional Splunk architecture is even costlier. In fact, in most of the cases, you can talk about it being 2.5 times costlier than the actual Splunk license cost. So what we are looking at is how do we reduce uh, the Splunk infrastructure cost while being able to do more with what we've already invested in our Splunk licenses. That's where the next generation of Splunk architecture comes in, which is Splunk SmartStore. And with that, we have the solution that Cloudian has, Cloudian HyperStore, which is the integration of Cloudian HyperStore with Splunk SmartStore. This is done over standard S3-based API, which are industry standards. The workflow for the initial ingest remains the same with Splunk SmartStore and Cloudian HyperStore. We still have indexes which can process data in a large volume and quickly ingest it into the indexes. The difference here is we now only need the indexer storage to handle hot buckets. Now, this is typically the 1 to 7 day worth of data. Everything else is considered warm buckets and can be placed onto Cloudian HyperStore remotely. This is a big change because Cloudian HyperStore by itself is an extremely inexpensive storage tier and can scale infinitely. With a global namespace, with a flat architecture, it is an infinitely scalable scale-out architecture which can keep going as the retention needs are required. To facilitate this, Splunk has introduced the SmartStore cache layer or the warm cache layer, which can do intelligent data prefetching when data is searched, and this data now resides on the external HyperStore. The benefits of this approach are very straightforward. This completely decouples the storage and the compute layer. Now, as you increase the storage, as you increase the compute, the only storage that you're adding on the performance tier is the hot buckets and maybe a little bit of SmartStore cache. But the actual storage, the beefy storage, which is on HyperStore, can remain independent. And similarly, when you want to scale the storage for retention, you do not necessarily have to add more indexes if you're not ingesting more data. And you can do this elastically on demand, right? Whether it is for indexing larger workloads or searching through a larger batch of data, retaining more data, it is completely up to you, and you are not tied one with the other. Now, all of this is in your data center because Cloudian is an on-prem data storage system, and it is at less than the cost of public storage. Okay. The biggest benefit, obviously, is the TCO savings that you get from an architecture like this. The Splunk licenses are expensive. Infrastructure is 2.5 times the license cost. We talked about that. And this architecture, the Splunk SmartStore architecture, helps you to reduce the infrastructure cost by greater than 70%, giving you an overall cost savings of about 60% of the overall Splunk use case. This is what allows you to do more with your Splunk investment. So do more with Splunk is the tagline that we at Cloudian use when we talk about our Splunk use case. And I would urge you guys to talk to us more. Like this video if you want to hear more about Cloudian and Splunk SmartStore use case. With a completely compatible S3 object storage, you can start small, scale into exabyte scales, and you can get your Splunk environment up and running very quickly at less than what it would cost for you to go to the public cloud. Again, like this video and reach out to us. We would love to hear from you if you have a Splunk use case. We are also at splunk.conf. You can visit us. We have everything being done virtually this year, so it's a virtual booth. Come and talk to us, and you can hear more about this use case and more about Cloudian HyperStore. With that, I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much, and appreciate it.